Hello everyone. My name's Shai, and I work as a product marketer at Chloris. And today we're having the fourth session of the eBiz Masterclass with the very talented Marcus Reich over here. And today's subject is on TikTok for B2B, as you can see clearly in the presentation. I don't know much about it, so I'll let Marcus talk about what we are going. I'll let him give his introduction and what we can expect out of him from today. So, Marcus, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much. By the way, he's been lying. He knows quite a bit about it. We had a nice intro chat. So I think we have definitely an expert in the round who can correct me if I'm wrong. So thanks very much for inviting me, by the way, and thanks very much for giving me this chance to talk. Before I start, and this is really important, I have a tendency to use bad language, and as you can tell, I'm talking out of the White House. So every now and then things might happen that not everybody likes. So for this reason, I have rated this presentation and my speech R, right? Just to be clear and frank on this. So who am I? My name is Marcus. I have 2 kids, so therefore I work my dad bod, which you can't see right now on the Zoom call. You might hear the kids, so if things play out, they might even run in. So excuse me for that. I've been an absolute nerd in my past life, so I've been a Call of Duty player at a time when you couldn't earn money with Call of Duty or any games, right? Yeah, thank God that I was born a couple of moons ago. And then for whatever reason, I got myself into the B2B world. That started with me getting my MBA in Australia. Then I started with the first B2B company and shifted from strategy at some point to marketing. And that was honestly pure chance. And this is how I ended up in this whole mess and what I'm doing now, which is basically teaching, researching in China and in Switzerland. So it's kind of like my thing. I'm pretty sure you have no interest in my research. If you do, just look me up on LinkedIn and I'll tell you everything about it until you fall asleep. So the topic of today will be TikTok, right? I do obviously have a TikTok account, and I would assume everybody on the call or in the Zoom conference will have one too, most likely. I'm the marketing guy on TikTok. I started this early January as an experiment, which I use for my papers that I write. So I have no intention whatsoever to be famous on TikTok or be an influencer or creator, any of that. If that account would be gone tomorrow, okay, I could live with it. But currently I have 300,000 followers, 13 million likes, and I think 170 million views, which is for me pretty extensive because I've never had this on any other platform. And it's kind of like to prove to my wife that other people like me, which is odd. I give you a feeling what I do sometimes on TikTok. Here's one of my videos that got roughly 10 million views.
It's Corona time. Hey, it's Corona time right now. It's Corona time. It's Corona time.
Yeah, that's the sort of stuff I sometimes do. As you can tell, I don't put too much effort into it, mainly because I do have a job, I do have a family, and there's other things in life for me than creating TikTok videos. And as said, I started this as an experiment to write papers about, learn about the platform, learn about some influence, learn about how the platform and me trying to create videos would impact my life and would impact my being, would impact how I create content, for example. And I publish on this different academic papers, which I know nobody ever reads, and therefore every now and then I write a book, which some people pick up, read, and give me feedback every now and then. And usually I also get banned on TikTok for what I do. I've had 4 bans, temporary ones, 1 permanent one, and kind of a shadow ban. So I'm definitely the baddest academic on the planet by now, at least by this definition. All right, then to continue, I need to say this, I need to stress it, because I also say it in my class, advertising sucks. Nobody gets up at any given day in any morning and says, Jesus Christ, what could I do today? Let me go on YouTube and watch some ads. I just can't wait for the pre-roll to finally start. And I don't want to click on the 5-second button when it pops up to skip the ad and watch the actual content. This is really important for me when we get to talk about any platform, as well as TikTok. I don't think we go and consume content to consume advertising, but the business models have started to evolve around advertising. By the way, I stole this quote, if you want, from a New York Stern professor called Scott Galloway. So blame him for that. He's much older. He has almost no hair. It's not my fault. But I do come in peace. I mean no harm. I do fool and joke around and whatnot, so don't take it too harsh. And I try to have some fun, but I try to dig in a couple of things that we don't talk about. We don't talk about when we look at other platforms, but we also don't talk about when we look at platforms like TikTok. And I think there are mechanics and methods at work that we need to understand, not just as human beings, that's one side of the coin, but also as organizations. How dependent, for example, might we become from a platform if we put all our eggs in a basket, which we shouldn't be doing based on portfolio management. So what do I attempt to cover? I thought I had 30 minutes. I have slightly more, which is great. As you know, I'm as a lecturer, I can talk a lot. So we have then the exam a bit later, and I'll just push it through. So I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is my preferred way of doing things. The good starts with what's happening on the platform, how a brand's already exploiting the platform. You've already seen from Chai, I think he's done a couple of postings on LinkedIn. There's countless brands on TikTok. I couldn't name them all. I mean, would be completely impossible. But some brands, I think, are already doing a phenomenal job of using the platform. Some brands, could maybe improve, and some brands completely miss the opportunity. And within that field is probably a lot what we find in B2B. Right? And we look at some influencers in the bad, where we think, hey, this maybe, could be better. For example, ad disclosure by influencers. In the US, the FTC is already looking into this. I spoke to them this morning at our briefing. In Europe, as always, Europe is lagging a bit behind, and it's a case-by-case thing that's happening here. And in the ugly part, we're looking at the mechanisms at work. What keeps us so incredibly engaged on the platform? What drives the content creator to create a certain piece of content? And why might the business have to put in more money in the future than today to reach the same sort of audience? And we see having a platform, no matter if it's TikTok or not, is probably a license to print money, which is a pretty cool business to be in. So to start with, let's look at a few numbers, just in case. I obviously have no idea of how much experience people have about TikTok, so I'll start with some of the basics. TikTok has been downloaded globally a bit more than 2 billion times, which is pretty tremendous. I know we've had the single day yesterday, and we looked at the numbers the Chinese pulled in, and so everything seems minuscule if it's not in the hundreds of millions, but 2 billion downloads is quite impressive for an app that is basically only a bit more than 2 years old on the market, right? That's pretty cool. As reported, it has roughly 1 billion video views per day. Now, I think it's actually way beyond that, but TikTok is scarce with reporting numbers. So you have different numbers in the market, and it's your choice which numbers you tend to believe. As in monthly average users, that's MAU, TikTok has reported in August 700 million, but obviously that number will continue to increase. I think they're going to hit the billion very soon, and I'm pretty sure we're going to hear this. Obviously, an impact to the monthly average users are some of the bans that TikTok is dealing with. And we get to one of the bans we've discussed before in India. There's more than one user in India, and banning India will, of course, have an impact on the monthly average user number. That could be tremendous if that goes back up. And really, really important for us, the average user spends roughly 52 minutes on the app a given day. So out of the 24 hours you have, and this is important for me, I have to morph into my role as a lecturer. Everybody, no matter if you're orange or not, you have 24 hours a given day. This is your limitation we all face, right? And that means for us that within these 24 hours a given day, we have to make choices. With what do I spend my time? Where do I place my attention? And there's also a principle attached to this, which is called the paradox of choice. I have to stop here because otherwise I start teaching about the paradox of choice and what it means for product management, product selection, and portfolios. But this is quite important for us to understand that our choice is to spend 52 minutes with TikTok. It's not bad for an app that most of you probably didn't have a year ago, right? So pretty cool stuff. And TikTok is super engaging. Again, I'm pretty sure Shirley has it and been playing around with it now, having more issues with the ban. But if you are on TikTok, and the experience is, I think, probably everybody shares, you open the app and you tell yourself, I'm just gonna have a quick look, right? And the quick look of the first 15 seconds turns into the next 15 seconds and turns into another 15 seconds. And 2 or 3 hours later, you find yourself thinking, Jesus Christ, what have I been doing? Right? You've been watching TikToks. And why is that? Because TikToks is amongst the very few platforms in the world that understands to capture the core of your very soul, if you want, through a superior algorithm that we haven't seen on other platforms, at least not to this extent. And that algorithm doesn't ask you questions. It doesn't say, hey, Chai, or whoever else is in the call, do you like music, or do you like blue better than black, or do you like apples or oranges? No, it just shows you content, and it starts to optimize based on how you react upon that content. And this is why you have this exhilarating experience being on a platform and saying, I just keep on scrolling until my thumb hurts, or you run out of battery, whatever comes first, right? So the algorithm is important. We come back to the algorithm and the power that algorithm holds over its users, and how fascinating or how capturing this experience becomes through that. And then, of course, we have bans and TikTok being in the media. Just we have to cover this. I don't make political statements, but this is the easiest to explain. As you know, TikTok has been banned in India, and it actually has been banned in India twice. The first ban was a fairly short period of time that got lifted. TikTok initiated the Editok initiative, which brought new light and a completely different image to the platform. And I think that was beyond genius. There was a move of very agile management that I personally, at least, wouldn't have an example of any other organization that was able to replicate that or has done anything similar in the speed velocity that TikTok was able to bring to the table. And the other ban that we're currently talking about is obviously the ban that might or might not happen in the US, right? It should have happened already, but it hasn't happened. And then suddenly, as you know, there's been going back and forth, and there's a lot of history to that, by the way. Also based on the Musical.ly acquisition that TikTok had in the past, which we're not digging in. It's old stuff. It's it doesn't matter. Oracle and Microsoft have put a bid in to acquire the stake of TikTok in the US, and that should have helped to overcome that looming ban, right? If a US operation takes over, or US organization takes over US operations, the ban is apparently not happening. It's really, really a great thought, but what happens if Trump doesn't get reelected? Which, of course, we know it hasn't happened, right? So he'll stay for another 4 years in office. But if it would have happened that somebody else would have gotten elected, that might have changed the deal, right? So therefore, we'll have to see how this plays out. But keep in mind, there could be another looming ban that, of course, changes a couple of things for the user. And a bit more than half of the users are male. And of course, I was wondering, how could that be, right? As an academic or sort of like a pseudo-academic, right? I don't see myself, as you can tell, as a pure academic, but you kind of like wonder, how could that be? And if you look at the change of demographics, it has been largely female in 18, and suddenly it has to start to shift it, right? And my theory to this, not a good thing that won't stop here, right? Let's leave it at that. What can I say? But with baking, you catch mice. And I think that's an effect we see on the platform. We've seen on many, many other platforms. We're not going to go too deep in here, but it's something we need to acknowledge and we need to understand. And if you look at the content of the platform, you will understand that the young demographic that we get to talk to in quite a bit, of course, plays very much with that thing at work. By the way, the song you were just hearing is the WAP song, which had a WAP challenge. I'm not telling you what WAP means. You can Google this, and it's not wine and pizza, by the way. And that has 3.3 billion views on TikTok. Just to throw in another couple of numbers, anything above 3 billion views or having 3 billion views, I don't think many of us in marketing have achieved with anything we've done. That's pretty high numbers, right? So let's move on here. How's TikTok's audience looking, apart from obviously, slight male dominance as of now, but it's a percentage gap that we can ignore. It's skewed to the younger side, right? We don't have to get into too much details, but we can tell it's skewed to the younger side as of now. So we find pretty much the generation Z on the platform. which is the generation everybody's talking about now. The involvement of the Generation Z, what will it mean for business? What is their worldview and whatnot? You have all these discussions, obviously, in the media. But what is important for us is, of course, to think about, hey, you are Generation Z today, a certain age, but in a couple of years, you're still Generation Z, but you're older. And a couple of years later, you're older as well, right? We had the discussion, and I think I saw a post of Shai as well on LinkedIn. How did Facebook look in the very beginning? How does Facebook look now with 2.7 billion monthly average user, right? Is TikTok the new Facebook? I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But a young demographic today doesn't need to mean a young demographic tomorrow. Demographics can change, they can age, and they can attract new demographics to come in. And I think we've seen that millennials, for example, started to swamp the app and have fun, right? I kind of like count to this group as well. So that has happened. So why not others, right? It's not impossible. We have to keep this in mind. This will be very important when we continue. And plus, something I haven't mentioned, there's a Chinese version of TikTok, which is called Douyin, right? Not everybody knows this, funnily enough. But if you look at Douyin, we already see an aging of the demographic. I'm not saying old people like on Facebook, but I'm saying an aging of the demographic. It's not just 13-year-olds, right? This might happen as well on this platform, particularly if we see tech innovation from Douyin swapping over e-commerce, visual search, and whatnot, right? Could change the demographic tremendously. But now, what does this all mean? We've seen some stats. We heard some stories about TikTok, issues about bans and whatnot. How does this translate for a brand or for an organization? And I think it translates into a savings of roughly, or a time difference of roughly 6 minutes. But what does that mean? Well, it means that a platform that I've just mentioned, Facebook, has only a 6-minute engagement advantage of TikTok. The average user stays about 58 minutes, plus minus, obviously, on Facebook. On TikTok for 52. This is amazing. If you think about that, Facebook was founded in 2004, and TikTok in 2016 came to be in 2017 as the app we could download. The merger in 2018, and you probably heard about it in 2019 the first time, right? Absolutely amazing. This is the engagement. This shows us where attention goes to. This shows us how society might change, how technology is impacting society. And of course, it should get us to think, because we need to question what is the job of us. And I would assume many of you are probably marketers, or could be marketers, or interested in marketing. What is the job for us in marketing? And I said before, very polarizing, probably advertising sucks. Again, quote from NYU Stern Professor Scott Galloway, so it's not my fault. But what is our true job? And I believe, and again, this is just an opinion, there could be very different perspectives, but part or core of our job will have to be to understand environmental changes and their impact on the interplay of the consumer with your or with our brand, so that we can react upon these changes, right? And these changes can be manifold. They can be technological changes. They can be societal changes. They can be political changes. For example, what happened in India, what happens in the US. That can be changes of any sort and scope that you could ever imagine. There's different tools and whatnot to capture these changes. And I think these tools we need to apply. If you want to know more about this, come to one of my marketing basics classes where I do this sort of stuff. It's really cool. Not on PowerPoint. PowerPoint sucks as much as advertising. If you don't do it in real life, we haven't done it, right? PowerPoint doesn't win you the battle. Now, and if we don't capture these changes and react upon them, or maybe even pre-anticipate changes and do something about it, we might end up as some organizations that we see on this slide. For example, Nokia, which in my generation, when we tried to be cool in school, everybody had a Nokia, apart from the few odd people with a Siemens, but everybody else had a Nokia. Who has a Nokia today? Yeah, I know. Huh? Kodak, photography. Who would have ever thought that today we're not speaking about Kodak anymore? Blockbuster Video, kind of like same story, right? Slapped in and suddenly Netflix was there. And now we have a streaming war and Blockbuster plays a role in that. I think Mercedes in the German automotive industry is probably the next one on the horizon. They kind of slapped into the whole, Tesla is kind of like funny. Oh, Jesus Christ, now it's worth more than us. Let's do something. By the way, Mercedes, we get to speak to them, get to speak about them later. They're very active on TikTok. but not having a great product, TikTok doesn't help you. So this is something we have to rule out. Advertising sucks. It doesn't help over the velocity of having a great product. And Facebook is, in my opinion, going to be the next one we have on these sort of charts, that an organization that might disappear. And again, the lack of product innovation might be found in the cost that we place on advertising, the example I've mentioned before. But I don't want to go too much into this. So let's get back to TikTok and start with the good. What is the good about TikTok we have to mention? I said it already. We get insane attention, right? I've never had, personally, on the experiment I've done, and as I said, I don't put too much effort into the content, mainly because I lack the time to do so, right? My average upload is between 2 and 5 minutes creation and upload. This is sort of like what I do. That's the max I can mostly afford. Many brands have already seen this, understood it, and said, hey, let's capture some of this attention for us. I give you some examples, obviously, just to highlight, and then we move on. Chipotle, a US fast food chain, again, been mentioned already in a LinkedIn post. So everything I tried to bring already Chai has put on LinkedIn, so all the flurry's gone. But they have jumped on fairly early on TikTok. Actually, they've had a hard time on the beginning to get into rhythm of TikTok, but they started to do 3 challenges. I think they also had branded stuff going on. I'm not quite sure about that one. But they had 3 challenges. One you see here on the right-hand side, the burrito challenge, which they had over Halloween or over the Halloween period. 4.1 billion views. It's pretty impressive, I'd say, right? And they captured 1.3 million followers, which is not a bad number either. We would, of course, have to compare this to the other channels, which we're ignoring for this. The next one we have to talk about is Dunkin Donuts. Dunkin Donuts hasn't done challenges, but they have gone into an influencer partnership. The lovely lady you see here on the right is called Shirley Demilio. We get to talk to her about her in a bit again, because that's quite important. And she has launched her own drink with the Dunkin Donuts brand, the Charlie. Why is this so important? Well, Charlie Demilio, as it happens, is not just 16 years old and really likes to bite her lip, but she's also the most followed person on the platform and approaching the 100 million followers on TikTok. Nobody else has this number yet. On that platform, on Instagram, doesn't mean much, but on TikTok, it's pretty impressive. And for a 16-year-old, I think it's pretty dope. And by the way, just as a fun fact, 7.6 billion likes. We have 7.8 billion people according to the census on this planet. So almost every person with a smartphone, sometimes a bit more, gave her a like. I think that's pretty dope. But of course, with that, and why do I bring her up? With 100 million views, I think she's prone with the rest of her family to replace a lady that probably all of you know that tried to break the internet. Therefore, she might stay forever. And we come again to an R-rated section of this talk. I can't do anything about this. It has to happen. But Kim Kardashian, she tried to break the internet in 2014, failed horribly with it. At least we still have the internet, thank God. Otherwise, we couldn't go on a shopping spree. Remember, Black Friday and Cyber Monday is coming up. We're in a pre-sale. Spend as much as you can. It's important. We buy stuff we don't need. Fun fact for you guys, she has 190 million followers on Instagram. She's not on TikTok, right? So it's kind of like the old breed of influencers, by the way, which is interesting because some say today you don't need any more talent. So in Kim Kardashian's sense, I'm not quite sure what the talent was. Oh yeah, it's a tape you put online and people see it and therefore you become famous and gain your influence. But again, this would be more than R-rated, so I can't show that one. But I'm pretty sure you've seen it. This is the D'Amelio family. So you see that Charlie D'Amelio, the second from the left, right? She has obviously a sister and she has parents. I mean, that's not so much of a surprise. They all joined TikTok, the platform, after Charlie. And they have a combined 200 million followers. A bit more. I just summed it up the other day. Only on TikTok, by the way, right? We're not counting YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, where they've also grew their following insanely. And they show one thing which I think is pretty impressive. Sort of like the crossover effect and the spillover effect or conversion effect of followers from TikTok into other platforms. If you look at the average YouTuber and don't take a Mr. Beast, which I assume you guys know, 45 million plus followers doing insane stuff, most of them take years and years and years to get to 1 million or even further, right? Mr. Beast, by the way, too, he joined in 2012. Charlie had nothing on YouTube and had millions of followers. absolutely amazing. And she has 6 million followers now on Triller, which is sort of like a competitor to TikTok, not having done much, not invested much in the app. So this is basically the spillover effect, which is important for us as brands to think about. Could we exploit something of this as well, right? Could TikTok be a platform where we capture attention and then convert some of the conversation maybe on a different platform? That's of course very much case dependent. So keep in mind, if you go on the app, the Demilio family, my opinion, will be the next Kardashians. If this is good or bad, I leave it up to your judgment. I don't think it gets much better than if Kardashian would move into the White House, but maybe for this. Then another challenge I have to bring up, which I think is insane by the numbers. Dettol is one of the brands that, you know, these hand wash, sanitizing type things. Yeah, I like it. This is sort of my fetish, but it has been pre-Corona. And they launched a campaign when Corona started to spike in India earlier this year. I think it must have been, I forgot to check again the date, but March-ish, around March, beginning of April, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, we saw the spike happening in India, and it didn't get too much news over here, but I followed it and I was like, wow, it's a fairly populated country. Let's see how that plays out there, right? So they launched this challenge, and this got 125 billion views. This is a number that is hardly to be captured in any sense, right? If you come back to your manager and say, hey, we've run a campaign, put in 150 grand, and how did it do? How many people did it reach? Well, you know, it got viewed 125 billion times. It sounds impressive in the first place. We can now, of course, argue and dispute what a view means. The latest information I had on TikTok was a video started playing, so it doesn't mean you watch it to the end. You would have to look at the average watch time and whatnot, which of course I don't have. This would be statistics that only Dettol and TikTok could hold on this. But this is a number, guys, come on. This is nuts. None of us have ever had anything of that sort in any campaign, not even if you run naked across the Super Bowl field with Kardashian and try to break everything from the internet to the PlayStation 5. We wouldn't get 125 billion views, at least not so quickly. So absolutely insane. Here's some examples of other brands. It's impossible to name them all. You know, we would need a couple of days for that probably. But you see there's everything represented on TikTok, from newspapers, obviously, to a lot of media and streaming organizations. Amazon, this is interesting to me because Amazon, not just Amazon Prime, but Amazon Media. UCLA is one of the few universities that kind of like tries on TikTok at least. The World Health Organization does a fairly good communication to reach younger generations and sensitize them about COVID and what it means, you know, to do certain things. But there's many, many brands currently missing. And I think there's many brands missing that have opportunities and they don't even see these opportunities, right? So with this, we start to move over to the bad, which inevitably has to happen, so we appreciate the good a bit more. So what is the bad? And again, this is just opportunities that are up for grabs. Universities as such have so far, in my opinion, failed to see and use this platform as a way or an enabler to capture the student body. I think there's so much opportunity, particularly for education, right? With that shortening of attention spans, with a younger generation, you try to reach and get into your university body to reach on a platform where they are. Most universities still fail to do so. There's a couple on there, but I mean, if you look at University of Michigan, 16.7 thousand followers, I mean, it's a joke. It's just a joke number. Shouldn't be like that. And if you look at the hashtags of certain universities, they have millions and millions and millions, sometimes even 100 millions of views, and the university is not represented. They're giving opportunities like crazy, which we also see, of course, with organizations, right? It's not just university, but I really like to bash education because I'm currently in education, and education will probably be the next sector that will see bigger disruption. Here's an example, Bosch Power Tools. Bosch is an insanely great organization, and there's been a discussion on LinkedIn, or there was a discussion on LinkedIn, whether or not Bosch Power Tools should be active or not active on TikTok, and what should they be doing. here we probably see an example of an organization that struggles with accepting the rules of the game on the platform, right? By being able to capture attention the way you need to capture it on that platform. You see on the right-hand side, I just checked the hashtag Bosch. Obviously, there will be mixed stuff in between, not just power tools, but roughly 100 million views, right? Why don't you capture that 100 million view conversation, become active in it, at least listen in, but Bosch has done some of the basics to the homework. Then another thing which I think is not so glorious, we see a lot of brands coming to the platform, working with influencers. Here's one example, doesn't matter who it is, but in that case, Mercedes-Benz as the brand, working with an influencer, having a couple of posts, but we see no ad disclosure in the post. Depending on where we are and who we are, we have different rules and regulations we need to adhere to. But I would recommend any organization working with an influencer to put in the contract that the influencer needs to disclose this as a paid promotion of some sort. Puts you as a brand in a much better light. And it's really, really ugly if the FTC in the US or some other legal entity, depending where you live, comes along and says, hey, by the way, we think this might be a commercial deal. Try to prove them wrong. I think it's going to be tough. And then, of course, we see organizations that have a pure transactional focus on the platform, and one of them being Apple. I had to recapture something I put on LinkedIn a couple of months ago, because it's hard to find advertising if you need it on the platform, right? There's different forms of advertising where I'm not going to get into in depth, because you can find this on TikTok itself much better than if I regurgitate it. But Apple is one of the organizations that surprised me. I never thought that Apple would actually become active on TikTok. They opened an account, followership, I mean, 100,000 for Apple, that's got to be a joke, it's a rounding number. But they started to put advertising out. To me, this is kind of like very low effort, just capture audience engagement, convert audience to another platform. That in that case, you get to the Apple site, to the Apple website, and you see only that transactional focus. I think Apple's leaving a lot on the street. They could get way more, but then we talk about the most valuable brand on the planet that probably doesn't need to build so much more. Right? Then another campaign which I thought was absolutely horrible, that was Prada. They've done a campaign with Charlie, the most followed person I've mentioned before, very early on today, in February at the Milan Fashion Week. So Charlie danced, I think, 6 or 9 times to Prada. And at the time they had this engagement with Prada. First of all, we see here on the left-hand side, Charlie, again, no ad disclosure. Pretty sure the FTC came along, gave a little snap and said, hey, we'll let you go because you're 15 at the time, but not again. And Prada, that's a screen capture at the moment they had this, this relationship with Charlie in February. They didn't even bother to put their logo on TikTok. I mean, this is to me the definition of a no effort machine. If I do anything like this, I wouldn't be on the platform at all, right? As a brand, this shows to an audience that has a very high level of engagement on the TikTok platform compared to many other platforms. I don't care, I only want your money. You know, brands should be a bit smarter than this. It took Prada a couple of months to finally put their logo in and make sure they get the blue tick, which means on the official site of Prada. I've mentioned this before. Be careful when you do any sort of paid gigs with influencers, which is sort of like the trend on the TikTok platform, many other platforms. Triller, by the way, is pushing this heavily to work with influencers. The FTC and many others are on the case. The FTC much stricter than organizations in Europe. As always, Europe usually next behind a bit. I think European politicians are still struggling to understand the internet, but they're getting there. We're catching up. We're having 4G. And then we have, again, many opportunities that miss tremendous opportunities, many organizations that miss tremendous opportunities. And these are industrials, right? Hilti doesn't usually sell to the B2C market. Most of their sales would go into the B2B. This is like the craftsman using that equipment, using it to build whatever they build with it, right? I can't build much, so. But you see here, there's countless examples of what people do with Hilti. You find different hashtags with Hilti products even. Hilti is nowhere to be found. Hilti, where are you? This is an insane opportunity. This is your target group selling your product, right? I saw a guy, I think in Brazil, he showed how to solve an issue with the Hilti machine. Huh? I mean, product manager, wake up, please. They're not far away from me, but I think they're still sleeping in, right? It's a COVID sleep. And on the other hand, We have Xiaomi. This is an interesting case, by the way. Xiaomi is an Italian machine manufacturer for the, what do you call it? I'm missing the term currently. You know, to produce chocolate and whatnot. It doesn't matter. So they produce machines and use these machines to produce groceries of sorts, right? So this is their sector. There's a special term for that. I'm currently missing it. And they have been mentioned in a chocolate brand in Switzerland. As you know, I'm in Switzerland. I like to eat chocolate, and you know, and completely off the platform. I'm not saying they could now capture this and have sales on the platform, but Jesus Christ, know it, right? Here, just that post I mentioned, Taukuli is a little chocolate brand here. As you can see, they're not having too much success on the platform itself, but one of their most viewed TikToks was with that brand, Xiaomi, where they basically bragged about
I got it.
wanting their machinery.
I want it. I got it. I want it. I got it.
Right? These are to me the examples that as brands in the B2B space, at least we should listen to, we should find this and maybe exploit it on our platforms. I mean, this is great stuff. You reach 41,000 people with your brand. Out of them, there's probably not one buyer as of now, most likely. But use this, humanize your brand somewhere else and become maybe part of the conversation.
I want it.
Yeah, by the way, if you want to know more about advertising or any of these resources, I suggest very much go to TikTok itself and not to the countless experts and gurus. Great people out there and whatnot, but I think TikTok knows best what the app can do and what they can offer in terms of advertising. And for this, they have the TikTok business site, which offers a lot of information. You can log in and blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go in detail. And of course, they have the TikTok creator marketplace, which is interesting because it's, in my opinion, one of the ways that shows us how TikTok is trying to get control. This is, by the way, in my opinion, very much a Chinese mentality. You don't control your business, you control the value chain, right? This is, I think it's smart. So what does it mean for us as brands? The absolute minimum I think we should be doing is to secure the brand name on the app, right? I do this in pretty much every app. I go on secure name and then I have the name. If you want to use it, it's great. If I don't want to use it, no harm done. Second, listen to the conversations. If you have a brand, you mention a brand, at least check hashtags. Do a search if you can be found. Maybe you found in a positive light, use it. Maybe you found in a negative light, just block the users. No, just kidding. Listen to why there's a negative light. Hilti's examples, right? Machines are failing. This is stuff I would listen into and see what I can do. I probably have a lot of learning because I have this quick content creation, which is cool, right? The last, third point to me is learn the format. Creating a 15-second video, which is the average sort of like, or the most viewed content on TikTok, as you know, 60 seconds is the top, is super, super hard. What do we do as industrials? We create these 20 to 30-minute industrial videos with that strange industrial music that puts everybody to sleep within the first 2 minutes, right? Here you have to capture attention in the first 1 or 2 seconds, or people swipe up and you're gone, right? Learn this format, get an account that you call Bunny24 and experiment with that content. If you're able to master this content, I believe we can use the shortening of attention span and learning from the platform and use that content maybe even on other platforms to our advantage. And then, of course, if your audience starts to pop up as a brand, if either the current audiences start to mature, which will happen, or more mature audiences join the platform, think about how you could use the platform to your advantage. This will be very much case dependent, but examples of what you could do is, of course, employer branding. Amazing opportunities. There's law firms on it that do it. There's banks on it that do it, right? It's not impossible. And you can find the gap between the TikTok culture and your own organizational culture and probably mix in between that is still funny and entertaining and not being, too blunt. Join challenges maybe. Put your spin as an organization on a challenge. Doable. Do it behind the scenes, what's happening in the organization, right? Again, there's some examples of banks that I think do this very well. And as last point, of course, you can humanize your brand, which is more and more important, going forward, keeping in mind the 24-hour limitation that all of us have and the choice we need to make as individuals, private and in work life, with whom or what do we want to spend their time. And that, of course, brings us to the attention part of this presentation, which is probably the most exciting one, the ugly. The ugly side is always the best side. The ugly side will be the one that we portray in the fake-ass media. And this side is, of course, coined by a couple of factors. One being the influencers I've just mentioned before. Here's something I captured on LinkedIn. It's a post by a guy. I didn't know, I blacked him out, of course. Who wants to have a manager because it just reached to an account on TikTok and wants to monetize now his effort on the platform. Fair enough, I completely get it. Today, there's a 3 times likelihood that a kid wants to be an influencer rather than an astronaut. I never want to be an astronaut, but still, it's kind of like the thing you think your kids will say, I want to be an astronaut, a doctor, a lawyer, not an influencer. But hey, that's something we have to deal with, and also something I showed you before we have to be very careful about. And that brings us to my master slide, if you want. It probably gets me banned again if somebody listens in, but hey, it doesn't matter. It's my 5th ban. It makes me definitely the baddest economic on the planet. This is the mechanics that a platform, very carefully here, can put to work. I'm not saying does put to work, can put to work, right? And there are different mechanics that have a play on the players being involved. Let's start with the user. I said this before. We have an algorithm at work, and I'm almost done, by the way. We have an algorithm at work that's trying to optimize the user to stay the longest possible out of the 24 hours available in a given day on that platform and show the highest level of engagement. But why would that be? Jesus Christ, I can't figure out. Why would a platform do this? Do they care so much about me that I look more at WAP dances and other things that I shouldn't be seeing my age? No, because your time can be sold for advertising purposes. You are the product of the platform. This is why the platform is free. And the story, bottom line, this is it. There's values and platform numbers I can't go into for time reasons. So the clueless user is getting optimized by the algorithm. But wait a minute. To optimize the time on the platform of the clueless user, we need content. But the platform doesn't create any content, as you know. It's only a marketplace to bring different players together and optimize towards a goal. So where does the content come from? What the content comes from the content creators, as you know, right? On TikTok, there's like 35, 36% of the users are content creators, which is quite big. Per se, per definition, if you want, I'll be one of them right now with no commercial interest whatsoever because that keeps me independent. But if I be a content creator with any objective in mind, and I've done research on this, which will be published next month, and this is super interesting. If I have an objective, I can be manipulated by mechanics of the platform which fly into my objective. This is, of course, the creator fund. This is, of course, the views I'm getting because the views equal the monetization potential I have. So in other words, if I don't play by the rules of the platforms, my views could go down. If I play by the rules of the platforms, my views could go up. Interesting, right? The research I've done, by the way, highlighted that creators with commercial interests were 100% manipulatable in the sense of they would do anything that would optimize views rather than, the opposite, of course. I'm just saying it could. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm saying it could. Why did I get banned 4 times? I don't know. Every time I got banned, I had a post on LinkedIn that was a bit critical. But I'm just, coincidences happen. I'm not big in statistics. Then we have brands. Brands bring in the money, right? Because we established that we're the product, but somebody has to pay for the product. And this is the brand that tries to sell you that stupid Prada bag that every 13-year-old wants now because a 16-year-old with 100 million followers tells you have to have this bag. So this brand pays that you see the ad or see the content of that brand. What would happen if that brand would create its own content and you would see the content? Then they wouldn't pay for it anymore, right? That would suck because nobody pays the party. Jesus Christ, I have an idea. Let's restrict the organic reach of the brand, which by the way on Facebook is averaged by 5%, and make them pay more to reach the audience. That's pretty cool, huh? Now let's throw this all together and assume we want to optimize towards the platform objective, which is, of course, monetization. It's a capitalistic environment, and there's no blame on this. And that means we can basically, or we could, I'm not saying we can, we could steer all the players in the game and optimize our goal as a platform. That's pretty dope, right? So think about this. That's what I mentioned on the very, very beginning. If we become, as a brand, dependent on one platform, doesn't matter if it's Instagram, it's Facebook, is it TikTok or Trello, we might have a problem in the future because what seems cheap right now will become expensive then, right? So yeah, just keep this in mind. There will be alternatives on the planet. Trello is one of them currently looking in. It's a really interesting platform. Don't want to sell here my book, but this will be interesting to look in. And again, your job as a brand manager, as a marketer, is to understand technologies coming to the market, interactions that are changing, and with more and more bans that are looming around TikTok, there must be an alternative that people take on. Is it Reels? I don't know. It doesn't seem sexy. YouTube Shorts? Come on, it sucks. Byte? Maybe. Triller looks good. So with that, I am done. Try to speed up on the last part, and I'm ready to start the exam.
That was absolutely wonderful. And right now in this very moment, I envy all your students who get to sit in your class, because this is perhaps the most engaging session that I've had in the last 1 year or so. And I really hope I could attend one of your classes back at university. So, this was so condensed in terms of how information is so necessary on every level. There needs to be a sense of driving information that then builds on to other actionable intelligence. Now, the question, I have certain questions of my own, and if at any point one of our participants who are watching this would like to jump in and ask questions, they could just write in away and I'll just share it on the screen. But one of the few questions that I had internally was there were like three broad themes that I'd love to get your thoughts on. One is communities. So how communities respond in a presence of a TikTok or with a brand or XYZ, whatever it may be. Then secondly is that how does these platforms scale so exponentially in a market which is supposedly saturated because there are so many competitors, right? And we'll get to the third one if we answer these two well. So first, let's go into that. So how do communities respond to a question of a platform coming into this play? So yeah.
Just to clarify myself, what do you mean with communities? Like, what's your
communities? So for example, how students would jump onto this app because they see their friends going on, and how businesses would jump onto this app. So is there a particular indication we could look into, or a trigger or a mega trend we can follow and then see, okay, this just might happen and let's predict it?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I try to answer it as good as I can. There's at least a theory on digital platforms or in a platform economy, which we're currently talking about in many, many fields, not just in social media, that there's the theorem called the winner takes it all. And this is basically once a platform reaches a tipping point, right? The question would be, what is the tipping point? Is it 100 million users? Is it 500 million users? Is it approaching a billion? I don't know. I would assume it would have to be geographically dependent, right? If you look at geographies and how much it takes up of a user base in a certain country, you would inevitably almost have to decide as a user, as you just said, do I want to join my friends and be within my peer group, or do I exit that peer group? And I think the example we've seen in the past was Facebook. A genius invention. Mark Zuckerberg is getting a lot of blame in the press, but he brought something up to the planet that now is used by 2.7 billion people on a monthly basis. That's quite tremendous. But if you look at a lot of people, why they are on Facebook, and that includes, for example, myself, I don't like the platform anymore for different reasons. I'm not very fussed about my privacy because my life's pretty out there, but I keep my account, first of all, because I'm a marketer and I want to know what's happening, but second of all, because my friends are on the platform. So if I want to connect with one of them that's in India, for example, that I met at my studies in Australia, or with somebody in the US, that's where I do it, right? TikTok, and I think this is interesting. TikTok doesn't build yet very much on your friendship circle. If you join the app, it doesn't ask you to connect your phone book and invite all your friends and build up your network. It's basically only focusing on you and your behavior. So I think we'll see TikTok, or in my opinion, TikTok grow through the individual user being super engaged with it and showing it to somebody else, saying, hey, look at this, I saw something super funny. This is what I did, for example, with my wife. I showed her like a couple of dog clips. Obviously the bob wouldn't fly, right? Like, hey, look at this, you want to do it too? It's just, so I think that's one way we see spread. currently on the platform happening. And of course, the other one is the insane news coverage that the platform's getting. I mean, it's insane. It's all over news. You can't miss TikTok. I think if there's one app on the planet you can't miss, it's TikTok. Whether it's good press or bad press, there's a saying, of course, there's no bad press in such. I'm not quite sure if that holds true, but that would be my attempt to look at this. What's the other question you raised?
So the other question was the scale at which customer acquisition occurs with a new platform coming into a market that is supposedly already saturated with millions of users, millions of brands, and all that kind of thing. So how does the mechanic of that thing works?
I think what we see here, and again, if you look at TikTok, TikTok has brought innovation to the table. They haven't created a new social media platform that just said, come here, post content, invite all your friends. You can send messages and do everything you can do on every other platform, which Google tried and didn't work out so well, and many others. With what they brought in with that algorithm, I think they have the element that creates that addictive nature of the platform to an extent that once you have it, and I remember very much I taught the course last year in China, and every now and then I had internet issues in my apartment, and then I jumped on TikTok and watched TikToks, and I had no reason to do it, but it was super engaging because it showed me exactly what I wanted. Right? It didn't default me. I mean, it captured me in a way that nothing else ever did, and I think that brings an aspect, also a fun aspect, to the table that other platforms just can't capture anymore. And if you look at over time, there's what we call industrial planned obsolescence. I think we see the same thing or phenomenon of this also in the digital world, where things just become unsexy. I mean, just Facebook doesn't have that sexiness factor anymore. I think when I joined Facebook, it was really early on. It was cool. You were like the one there, and you invited your friends, and like, oh, cool, and blah blah. And you had the ones that didn't want to come, but it had a coolness factor about it. That's gone. It's not there anymore, right? And for the younger generation, imagine if my kids, like my oldest one is 6, he doesn't want to be on a platform where I'm at. First of all, because I see what he does, and it's just not cool anymore, right? He doesn't want my content, and I think that's something that that TikTok managed to do as an incumbent to the space of social media. And I think TikTok managed to do something that many apps tried but didn't get to. This is like this short attention span phenomenon we had before, as in content can't be long anymore. It should be shorter and capturing you in no time at all. And nobody did this to this point, right? It just wasn't there. I mean, Facebook had nothing of that sort. It was just you upload your crap and whatnot. YouTube is long form content you can't get into. You have to be almost a professional videographer to have any chance on YouTube. And so TikTok, I think, captured this really well. That would be my take, guys.
Just a second. I think we had one question coming in from power died.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the questions which came through is that it's from Zineb. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's metadata helps us target business on Facebook. Is there a similar tool for TikTok?
Yeah, if you go on business, if you go on TikTok business and create an account, you get informed about the different ad opportunities you have, and in there also the opportunities to target users. And I think TikTok is constantly expanding on what they're currently offering. And one thing though, the offering usually depends again on a geographical space. They don't roll out on a global level. They roll out in the country and then they add other countries to it. Unfortunately, the country where I live, Switzerland, usually gets boarded the last to most of the things, because obviously it's not the most important country per population with 8.4 million people. It's kind of like a suburb of a village in India. You know what I mean? So that means waiting sometimes quite long, but yeah, they already have targeting opportunities, which I think are interesting. But TikTok has now a problem, right? Because you don't state preferences and likes as you do on other platforms, for example, on Facebook, where you can work with written metadata as such. TikTok has to understand you, your behavioral traits, right? I think it does so in an insane way. And then again, that's the algorithm. Get the app, download the app, get an account, start watching TikToks, and judge for yourself how good the feed captures you. And this is how good the algorithm is. And if you look at this capability, then I have no doubt they can match whatever you put to the table to the current behavioral traits they can capture from a user to have a great targeting opportunity. However, the current ads that are floating on the platform, I think, are just an overkill in terms of being intrusive and not having any relevancy at all. At least the ads that I'm currently seeing. So it's not going to the best, my perception as a user. But I also think brands are missing heavily to create content that doesn't appear like an ad as they do on other platforms. Apple's a great example. What they put on TikTok, they would have on any other platform or on YouTube. It's just an ad, nothing else, right? No effort whatsoever to be different on TikTok or capture the sense of the narrative, if you want, of TikTok. So I would try to work with the TikTok team. I think they're very approachable because they want your money, like our platform, so they would love to do this and find a way to be as native as possible to the app independently. So not, all eggs in a basket.
Right. So I think this is more of a one last question, and this is very B2B focused. So my first brush with the TikTok happened with students from University of Nottingham in Ningbo, China, which is a province. It's in China, Ningbo. And I was in UK when I was with my friends who were visiting, and I just happened to see that what they were doing. So the thing was that there are ads that pop up time and time again, right? And you're scrolling and you're unaware, but something strikes and everything's great. And you mentioned the entire web flow of how things occur, the content creators being paid by the brands and all that. So the question is that as an integration platform, our business, that's Chloris, right? And we reach out to major businesses and we ask them whether they want to get an e-commerce space or something like that.
Yeah.
So do you think just what happened with Facebook marketplace, they came in with the marketplace a couple of years back, and then it sort of died down, and then Instagram business came, and we can already see that it's going to a disintegration decay. Do you think that TikTok's there? And if it is there, what's the ecosystem's going to look like?
I think, well, first of all, that's a very good question. My perspective on it, or my take on it, if you look again at Douyin and what Douyin has already done with, for example, e-commerce integration and visual search, they have taken it to a level that I think no other platform has. I mean, you watch a Douyin video and you can click on basically any item you see in the video and you can retrieve that item, and ideally you can buy that item. So this is a level of integration that's just mind-boggling, right? It also means they're able to read unstructured data like nobody else. If you think about these opportunities that will present themselves, I mean, look at the Shirley Demilio I've mentioned before. She would be the walking billboard. Everything she has on, from the makeup to the hair to the watch to the jewelry itself, clothing, would be, you tap on it on the app and this could be fully integrated into your experience. It doesn't have to be an ad per se anymore, right? This would be fully integrated. Think about watching that Bosch Power Tool video where a guy in Brazil is like, oh, this is how you, I don't know, build a pool or whatever problem he solves, whatever he builds and constructs. You tap on it and you get to the Bosch Power Tool side, or you just get a deal on that Bosch Power Tool, right? The next phase that could come to play would be, I believe, what we call algorithmic commerce. If it comes to be or not, I don't know, but we've seen Amazon trying to have the one-click purchase and they struggle a bit with the zero-click. But if TikTok is so good in reading your mind or your behavior and with the behavior, having sort of like an attribution model of who you are and what makes you. Now imagine they put this to play, for example, with a partner like Walmart in the US, and you get a box sent home with products in it. I don't know what it could be, different products. And let's just assume you keep part of these products and the rest you send back. And the algorithm sharpens again. And this would be sort of like the idea of algorithmic commerce. You get products before you know you want or need these products. I mean, needs and wants are things we distinguish in marketing. We know that needs are, something's missing in your life if you want state of deprivation and want is shaped by your surrounding to it. But this could get to a completely different level, right? There would be no semantics necessarily involved. It would be your behavior that could be judged. And if that algorithm gets put on different platforms, maybe even taken out of TikTok, so spread across a commerce platform, I think this could change tremendously how we interact, maybe with businesses. The question I think will be, but again, maybe I'm wrong there, it's just an assumption, right? How well the algorithm can calibrate items you receive versus items you return, and if this reaches a break even of profitability. If you return more than you receive, that's not possible, but if you return more than the break even would have to be, then it's an unprofitable business, it's not going to happen. But if you reach this state, this would be absolutely frightening. It would be amazing to some extent, but it'd be frightening because if you think about, you take almost any selection power away from the consumer. You know, in an extent, you're sitting at home and your Coke comes home and you're kind of like thirsty in this moment. Are you going to drink your Coke or are you going to send it back and wait for a Pepsi? You know, just saying. Amazon, if you want to play around with this, not to the extent that TikTok, I think, will bring to the table, this will crush everything we've ever seen. But if you want to play along with this, try Amazon Alexa and do an Amazon search for batteries, AAA batteries. This is my experiment I usually do in class. You look for AAA batteries and you find different categories that Amazon shows you, from Amazon, I don't know, best price, Amazon choice, Amazon XYZ, blah, 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 sponsored and whatnot, right? And you see if your known batteries like Duracell and whoever, right? And now ask Alexa to order you AAA batteries on Amazon. And Alexa will only give you one thing, that's Amazon Home or Amazon Basic, like the own brand of Amazon, right? This is a reduction of choice to a certain extent. The question will be, does convenience then overweigh the missing of choice? So is your satisfaction going down by the missing of a choice, or does convenience make up for it? As in, hey Alexa, order me this. Or with TikTok, or with TikTok algorithm, I don't even have to converse anymore. I'll just come home and I have, I don't know, my chicken parmigiani at home to cook at night, because TikTok figured by the stuff I watched and how I interacted on the platform that this is what I want to eat tonight. Right? But this will,
yeah.
wow.
I mean, this is interesting. This is hyperconnectivity of data flowing from end to end, and just free will going down and decision being taken for you, and you just become convenient with that because it's, well, less cognitive workload.
Yeah.
So yeah, completely agree. Well, this has been so insightful. Thank you so much. Before we end the session, we just given a brief to our viewers what the next session will be. So on the next session, we're joined by learning how to use video creators and B2B marketing. So you could join in and you can know more about the entire session on the Chloris website. And before you go, Marcus, if one of our viewers who are really inspired and incited by the entire conversation that we've had today would like to reach out to you, what's the best method to reach out to you?
Just look for me on LinkedIn. I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn with my name, Marcus Bach, R-I-C-H. And just shoot me a DM and we'll talk.
All right. All right. So thank you so much for being here today. This has been absolutely wonderful. And thank you for taking out the time for us. Thank you so much.
Right. Take a try, and don't forget, I don't concede.
Totally. Bye-bye.
All right. See you, man.